Alliance in Brussels. Welcome everyone to the Digital SME Blockchain Summit. We're kicking off this event for the first year in 2020. We definitely would like to start to continue that in the next years. So I'm very glad that the Association of SMEs, the Digital SME Alliance, is hosting this summit this year on the topic of blockchain. This is the Digital SME Blockchain Summit. We have a technical problem. For the first year in 2020. We definitely would like to start to continue that in the next year. How do we solve this? So I'm very glad Sorry? Yeah. The Association of SMEs, the Digital SME Alliance, is hosting this summit this year on the topic of blockchain. This is... Fammi chiudere, non posso fare un cazzo. Wait. I will try to leave and join again, okay? Blockchain, a technology which is promising many benefits to the economy and society. It can be applied to many different applications. Traditionally, we have learned it in cryptocurrencies, therefore in fintech, but it can definitely be used in stuff like contract law, personal identification, trade, logistics, even agriculture. We learned. So it is a technology that promises really to deliver a lot of benefit. Nowadays, people believe it is gonna reach a plateau of maturity in about 10 or 15 years when it's gonna be widely used. So we are still in the early phases, but we already understand that the technology has big potential. Europe itself is a region that, compared to the rest of the world, especially US and China, is doing well in terms of blockchain. The data says that Europe has about 32% of the worldwide capitalization in startups and companies in blockchain. Therefore, we are, and we are also quite good in terms of research in blockchain. So we are in a good position for once to lead in the global race, at least in this particular technology. Another couple of things. It's indeed, there are several European funded initiatives and policy projects ongoing in the area of blockchain. So the Commission in particular is investing quite some money and engaging in several initiatives in order to promote blockchain, to do the research, and to help the innovation among companies. In particular, I would like to mention BlockIS, which is a very interesting project that is distributing almost 2 million euros to SMEs and startups that want to implement blockchain with innovative projects. So they have a scheme of cascade funding, whereby they are financing, they're giving grants to a very high number of blockchain companies, both providers of technology and companies in traditional sectors, in manufacturers and so on, or even in agriculture, that want to use blockchain. Final note, especially for the members of the European Digital SME Alliance, we are launching a task force on blockchain, where the experts from SMEs, from associations, from our members would engage in conversations in order to help us define the policies for blockchain and contribute to the debate in Europe about blockchain. But let me not continue further. Let me introduce the first speaker of this event, which is also the person who's going to give us a little bit of an introduction, a keynote. I'm very honored to have Henna Virkkunen. She's Finnish, as you understand from the name. She's a member of the European Parliament, and she has quite a good track record in government in her country, in Finland. She has been Minister of Transport, Minister of Local Government, Minister of Education. Forgive me if I forgot anything, Henna. You really have a good track record in government, besides being in the European Parliament since 2014. And you have been active definitely in the conversations about and the policies about blockchain. So you are certainly in a good position to let our audience understand what Europe is doing and what you think we should be heading on with the promotion of the blockchain technology.
Yes, thank you, Sebastiano, and good morning, everybody. It's a great pleasure to take a part of this summit and give some opening speech for this important event. Because as we all know, digital economy is a very important priority for the European Union in the next years. And that's why I think it's important that we are also focusing a little bit to blockchain and other distributed ledger technologies now, because we know that they have a potential to transform a wide range of industries in Europe. And this is also something what we are speaking now very much, that we have to invest to our industries and SMEs in Europe to make sure that we are competitive in the future. As with all emerging technologies, blockchain and the other distributed ledger technologies, of course, they create both new opportunities, but also new concerns that need to be addressed with the balanced policy responses. Fundamentally, however, we know that blockchain is a database technology that enables a new layer of trust in the digital reality, and as such, a positive and exciting development. So I'm very happy to hear that you are planning to establish a task force for this sector, because now I think one key issue is to be addressed in the European sphere. It's the need to increase understanding of what the technology is and what it means for different industries. And I think your task force can play an important role in this. And it's also, of course, important that we are organizing, and you are organizing as digital SMEs, that kind of summit and event where we have the possibility to discuss between the experts that what kind of opportunities we have and to where we should focus now. Because I think that policymakers and stakeholders, they need to truly understand what blockchain means for various sectors and where its application adds real value. As a policymakers, we need a collaborative multi-stakeholder approach towards developing a policy response that protects the rights of EU citizens without slowing down innovation and creating red tape. And that is always where I'm a little bit worried in the European policies, that easily there's always risk that we are setting barriers for new innovations, and that we shouldn't do. We have to be very careful, because all the time we should boost innovations. This is a difficult balancing act, but one we need to get right. While formulating the EU approach to blockchain, we need to understand the borderless nature of the technology itself. The EU policy and regulatory framework for distributed ledger technologies must always take into account also the global context. And that is something we should focus very much when we are discussing on blockchain also, and also the other, of course, the whole digital sector. Of course, the main target should be that we are competitive in the global scale. And as Chairman already said, Sebastian said in his opening words, blockchain is very promising also in that view, because it seems that it's one of the sectors where Europe could be really front runner also in the global scale. So we have very good, I think, innovations in the field of blockchain, and there we can really be front runners in the global scale also. In one of the key application domains in distributed ledger technologies, namely cryptocurrencies, the Commission has already come forward with a legislative proposal published as a part of the digital finance package at the end of September. I welcome the Commission's approach of boosting innovations. I think it's really, really crucial for us, while preserving also final stability and protecting investors from risks. It's important that we will provide legal clarity and certainty for crypto asset issuers and providers, and from this perspective, the proposal is much awaited. Because I think in the same time, when we want to boost innovations, we shouldn't set up new barriers, but the legal certainty is also very important when we are investing in new innovations and ideas. And I think this Commission's proposal now gives that kind of legal certainty what was needed. I also welcome the aim of the digital finance package to foster more channels to provide financing to European SMEs, because this is really needed, while leveling the playing field between incumbent financial services providers and newer fintech firms. With regards to balance between flexibility and safeguards, there is still need for further discussion. In the Commission's proposal, the new rules will allow operators authorized in one member state to provide their services across the EU, while safeguards include capital requirements, custody of assets, a mandatory compliant holder procedure available to investors, and also rights of the investor against the issuer. The proposed crypto asset legislation builds partly on the concept of regulatory sandboxes, which allow for temporary derogations from existing rules, so that the regulators can gain experience on the use of distributed ledger technology in market of infrastructures, while ensuring that they can deal with risk associated with it. And I think this regulatory sandbox approach, it's something that can be useful in other sectors also. And we have been discussing also this earlier with you stakeholders about these regulatory sandboxes. When we speak about that kind of new ideas and innovations, I think it's a good tool we could use more, because it can be very useful in other sectors also and other application domains as well. And the Commission has also now expressed its desire to work towards a pan-European blockchain regulatory sandbox launched in the following years. While the regulation on crypto assets is the most pressing issue with regards of the emergence of distributed ledger technologies, other initiatives are also needed. Specific focus should, for example, be directed towards smart contracts and tokenization, which will require updates to the existing regulatory framework, as we know. Overall, it's important that we approach new technologies with a positive note. Blockchain, like other emerging technologies, are primarily an opportunity and way for industries to innovate. And I think that is something this summit is also about today. It's a very positive thing that we have that kind of new opportunities, and now we should just look to where we should focus to boost the innovations in this field. European digital SMEs who act as a catalyst of digital transformation, creating new jobs and growth, need to be enabled to compete in the global marketplace. And I think in order to achieve this, it's very important that we are making sure that we have direct sufficient investments in research, innovation, and digital infrastructure, while regulating with the care and avoiding red tape. And this is something what we are now, of course, discussing very much in the European Parliament also, when we are speaking about next MFF, about next budget for 7 years in the European Union level, because we would like to invest much more to research and innovations than the European member states are doing. And I think that is something crucial what we have to take care now as a policymakers, because we know that if we are looking the GDP in USA or China or Japan, they are investing much bigger part to research and innovations than we are doing in Europe. And I think this is something very alarming. So I think the most important thing what we have to do as decision makers in the European Parliament, we have to take care that we are investing to research and innovations, and we have to take care that we have innovation-friendly regulatory framework in Europe, that we have access to markets for new ideas, and of course also SMEs, they have to have access to finance. And I think nowadays it's more and more important also to have access to talented people, and that's why we have to also invest in education. And that's why it's also important that we are having and organizing events like that, like you are doing today as SMA Digital, to raise awareness of the new possibilities and opportunities we have with blockchain and other distributed ledger technologies. So with these words, I warmly welcome everybody to this morning seminar, and I wish you all a happy summit and fruitful discussions on blockchain and other distributed ledger technologies in this morning.
Thank you very much, Hannah. That was very good. I think I can only agree with your words about cutting the red tape, especially for SMEs, and especially about boosting the investment in the MFF on research and innovation for Europe, because compared to other regions, we are definitely a little bit behind. So I'm very glad that you are doing this good work in the Parliament to promote also the interest of the innovative technology companies in Europe. With this, let me invite the speakers of the first panel to switch on their cameras and mics. So we will kick off the first panel conversation, and Hannah, she's absolutely invited also to remain with us and take part in this conversation. We have a good mix, as you see on the screen. We have a good mix of SMEs and policy makers in the first panel. We have the European Commission, the OECD, and we have people from companies in different countries. So I'm very glad to start the conversation. I will probably begin with Peteris Zigalvis, who's head of unit in the European Commission, DG Connect, responsible for basically startups and blockchain. So this is really your topic, Peteris. Maybe you'd like to give us a little bit of, what is your view? What is the Commission doing to promote this technology and to help the uptake in SMEs and startups? What are the latest news from the European Commission, basically?
Thank you very much for giving me the floor, and the excellent opening words by Hanna Virkkunen already pointed out some of the parts of the initiative that we have to really promote a European leadership role for blockchain. A leader, not perhaps dominant in the world, but different from some of the other digital technologies. We really have both the reality and the potential to be a global leader. What is this initiative built on? First of all, we have the EU Blockchain Observatory and Forum, which you could say is the knowledge, a think tank bringing together academia, reports, deep dives, and workshops so that we have a mapping of what's happening in blockchain and a sharing of best practice. Workshop coming up on the 29th of October on central bank digital currencies with the European Central Bank, Bank of Japan, Bank of Canada, so really international. Then we have the European Blockchain Partnership, all 27 EU member states, Norway and Liechtenstein, building together, deploying, not piloting, but deploying a European blockchain services infrastructure, which we see as kind of a real launch pad for a producer ecosystem of blockchain in the EU. And here we have use cases from self-sovereign identity to diploma certification to audit document certification, RegTech, regulatory reporting, going live already next year. Right now, there's nodes already working, piloting, testing, but we are aiming to deploy next year. Henna mentioned the markets in crypto assets legislation and the pilot regulatory sandbox, so I won't repeat that. Thank you for the kind words. This is providing a pro-innovation legal framework, legal clarity, in order to, again, have a space that our entrepreneurs can flourish and investors from elsewhere can also come in. I would add that in the Digital Services Act, we're looking at how smart contracts can be assured to be seamless and across borders in the whole EU, that we don't have fragmentation in that. So it's a pro-innovation part of the Digital Services Act, encouraging new business models, new technology. Also, we're investing in skills, we're investing in research. The regulatory sandboxes were mentioned in these great opening words. Also, the European Blockchain Partnership is itself working as a regulatory sandbox. This is something that was not foreseen in legislation, putting public services on a blockchain. And next year, it'll officially start working as a regulatory sandbox and also start looking at some use cases that it can perhaps also create some precedents or some advice that can be utilized further in the society, in the economy, in the member states. Again, providing this pro-innovation legal framework and standardization. Then we're working in areas like ISO, International Standardization Organization Technical Committee 307, to ensure that European values and European laws such as GDPR, the General Data Protection Regulation, Network Information and Security, are also taken into account in the establishment of standards at the global level. And then the last words of my hopefully brief enough introduction are that for us, the green transition, the EU Green Deal, goes hand in hand with Digital EU. So we're also ensuring that the blockchains that we use are sustainable, that they don't waste energy. So to get a little bit technical, proof of authority, proof of stake, Byzantine fault tolerance, rather than the proof of work, which doesn't look as efficient from an energy point of view. So green blockchains also reflecting European values and our green determination to stop climate change.
Thank you very much, Peteris. Both you and Henna insist a lot on this concept of regulatory sandboxes, which I think is very interesting, especially for smaller companies, because ideally they will be able to try and deploy technologies, innovative things in a regulatory environment which lets them try in the beginning. This is at least the way I understand. Maybe we go there. We'll have some more discussion on that later. Let me continue with Marco Bianchini, because Marco is economist at the OECD, and he deals in particular with SMEs policies. So, I mean, Marco, you certainly are in a good position to tell us a little bit what is happening in the different OECD countries. Maybe not just Europe, but also beyond. Who's ahead in the race? Who's setting really the best policies to promote the blockchain adoption in SMEs? Do you have any? And I know you have been doing also a study maybe in the Italian market on blockchain for SMEs. So what are your takeaways? What would you really like us to know about the fantastic work that you and the OECD are doing to promote this technology?
So first of all, thank you very much, Sebastiano, to giving me this opportunity. I'm very happy to be here to talk a bit about what we are doing in the OECD. Again, I'll try to stay in relatively brief in this introduction, and maybe I will first give you a few elements to answer your questions related to the general work of the OECD, and then I will go a bit rapidly on a deep down on what we are doing in the area of SME policy, which of course it's particularly relevant in this context. First of all, at the OECD, we launched the OECD Global Blockchain Policy Center, and within this Global Policy Center, we have started working on all the different aspects that are related to the to the development of this technology. So from a research perspective, we watch from the more financial application related to digital assets and all the potential implications for financial markets and the effects of tokenization, as well as on more the industrial side, what the impacts on competition policy, on supply chain management, etc. And in this sense, we are, to give you also a concrete example, we are now organizing a large-scale event in the mid of November that will bring all these topics to the table. We will discuss about national blockchain strategies, development of the decentralized app market, the blockchain, again, in asset tokenization, as well on central bank digital currencies. So all the different aspects, let's say, as the OECD, we are also trying to have a role in international standard settings, again, to bring together both our European members and all our member countries that are outside of Europe, which is basically all North American countries, Chile, Korea, Japan, New Zealand, Australia. So in this sense, we are also working on some draft recommendation that we hope will be approved and will be general recommendation from the OECD to set international standards. This said, this is the general work of the OECD. But particularly in our work, we have tried to look at how this technology can impact specifically SMEs and which are the policies at worldwide level, as you were asking, that are enabling this ecosystem to flourish in different countries and in different markets. In particular, we have looked both, at least sincerely, to look at SMEs. It's a bit looking at the issue from two different perspectives, in the sense that on one side we try to look at the supply side, so to look at the innovative SMEs and the startups and entrepreneurs that were actually bringing these kind of services to market, so that are coming out with new projects, with new ideas, and with new software products to put on the market, as well as the demand side, so the traditional SMEs, so possibly the SMEs that will never really understand blockchain deeply or develop their own services, like maybe they will understand the functioning, but they will not develop their own service or infrastructure, but will be very likely to use some kind of infrastructure based on this technology. In order to do so, we decided to take first a specific country approach, so to work with specifically with some OECD countries, and it's lucky in the sense that we started with one European and one non-European country. So we worked with Italy and Israel, are our first two cases, and now we are discussing with Korea and other countries for the upcoming years. And we have seen various different points that are worth noting, because first of all, of course, this is more speaking as a researcher, that of course working on such a nascent market at its very beginning is very difficult, because you don't have a long time series, you don't have a lot of data about it, so you have to imagine how to do it. And I think in this sense also we try to rely on knowledge institutions in the countries that were working in this aspect. For example, in Italy, we work very closely with the blockchain observatory of the Polytechnic of Milan, which is also which is one of the Italian node of the EBS infrastructure that Petris was referring to. So it's one of the main actors in Italy that is supporting the development of the ecosystem. And thanks to them, we were able to identify around 70 companies in Italy, 70 startups that are actively bringing new services to the market and that are trying to create new blockchain products. Then we developed the survey, and we both launched the survey and did numerous direct interviews with these people to understand what they were doing. And we did a similar process was done in Israel. And one point, then I'll go to my closing. One point that was very interesting to see is that also the development of the blockchain industry in both countries really closely resembled or mirrored the industrial structure of the country. What do I mean concretely? That when we looked at which kind of products and areas companies were working in, again, we excluded the crypto exchanges and like purely financial companies. We only looked at companies working really with SMEs in industrial sectors. And in Italy, we saw that more than a fifth of the companies were actually working in products related to supply chain tracking, and especially in the agri-food, machinery, textiles, so the big export sectors for Italy, and as well quite a few companies that were working on intellectual property protection, which again is something very relevant for Italy and for its brands. While in Israel, for example, we see that instead more than a third of the companies were working on the backbone ICT infrastructure with a very strong focus on cybersecurity, which again is something you would expect from a market like Israel. So again, we are seeing that these ecosystems are growing together with the rest of the economy. And and in this sense, I will go to my close, and maybe we'll have time to discuss later about the main points and policies and examples that we see also around the world. Thank you, Sebastiano.
Thank you very much, Marco. I think what you're saying is really nicely leads also to the conversation with the other panelists, because when you say, and I'm happy to hear that the blockchain technology basically is used in different countries in a way which differs depending on the industrial ecosystem of that country. I mean, Italy is more in logistics and IT, supply chain, whereas Israel is more in cybersecurity. This is very interesting because it makes me think that the technology is really suitable to have several applications and to be useful to promote different industrial sectors and make them work in a more smooth way, because this is a technology that helps making transactions essentially, trustful transactions, verifiable, and so on. And that perhaps is something I would like to ask Petko Karamochev, because Petko, you're not just a blockchain expert also in standardization, but you are an entrepreneur yourself. You work in an SME. You have been very active in really the deployment of the blockchain and distributed ledger technologies in other companies. So what is for you, I mean, can you give us an idea of what are the range of applications that SMEs can expect and companies in general can expect to have from blockchain? What is your experience? In which type of fields would you advise your clients to use it?
Thank you very much for inviting me, Sebastiano and Marco. I would start in a different way because you mentioned the Italian market and the Italian financial system. Just a couple of days ago, a new project was launched by the Italian Banking Association, and it's live and it's on right now, which is the Spunta project, exactly, Marco. So it connects 100 banks. Like previously, there was a super complex system in Italy, a reconciliation system. Now it's live, 100 banks, 200 million transactions till now, and 340 more million expected by the end of 2020. So this is a research project. I mean, blockchain is live, and just a few words on where do I see the blockchain implementation right now. Unfortunately for the SMEs, it's a kind of a top to bottom approach. Obviously, we see a lot of use cases in capital market, insurance, supply chain, trade finance. A couple of projects I've seen that are operational in the healthcare market. Many governmental projects, and I would later on probably we'll discuss the European Blockchain Service and Research. To be working with Peteris and many other experts in Europe on creating the technical structure of this initiative. Even projects in constructions and real estate are happening. Some of them in Europe, some of them in London, despite the COVID-19. Some projects in energy, especially the green energy. We see a lot more projects of renewable energy certificate trading on the distributed ledger technology, some carbon footprint tracking as well. A lot of projects are happening in this area. A few projects that might be mentioned, that worth mentioning is projects in the telcos and many other markets and ecosystems. So technically, the blockchain, the way we see it, is a multiplayer sport. So whenever there's a multiplayer interaction, this is where the technology is coming as a solution.
Yeah, a multiplayer. That's what you know. It's you really have a wish list of you know, a menu list of possible options for blockchain. Let me then go to Nadia Fabrizio from Cefiel. I mean, Nadia, you are also working in a company in a mid-sized SME from the north of Italy. Very active in the training and education and training, and blockchain is one of the things you do. So Nadia, what is your take on this conversation? What is this? Is it just a buzzword, blockchain, or yes, please.
My feeling is that yes, we need such a talk like this to have just a discussion with what is happening at the European level, because in our experience, we are such quite a strange company, because we are a SME that we work in technology transfer and innovation, doing research, skills, digital knowledge, and also helping companies to develop ideas. And in helping companies to develop ideas, we have developed an experience of at least 5 years with blockchain. And during these years, I'm leading the lab. I've worked with Google, with Algorand, and I've worked with the Little SME. So I have also the different approach. I think that there are 3 pillars that we have to keep in mind. First, that blockchain is quite a strange animal, and it is not like any other animal in the world, even though we have artificial intelligence and robotics. Because at the end of the story, blockchain is not a technology. To understand blockchain, we need economists that knows game theory, that knows also a lot of mathematics. So we are not able as engineers, we are engineers. Most of us coming from Politecnico di Milano, because we are headquartered in Milan. We are not capable to cope with blockchain without the economists and understanding really, because you cannot understand blockchain simply explaining the ledger, or that you track, you register data. Blockchain is not this. It's consensus, and consensus has to do with economy, with ecosystem, and the reason why ecosystem exists, because it has to do with the transactional power. So first of all, we need research funded by Europe, because we need just filling the gap to take to be updated, because we need a lot of research in blockchain. Secondary, we need to develop skills, and it is not an easy job with SME. And first, SME, what SME can do, they can contribute with ideas, because they have a touch of the market, so they can contribute with ideas. But we have to combine many elements. So we have SME can contribute with ideas, but to develop a blockchain, they need the blockchain as a platform. We cannot expect. I have also a lot of talk with the MISE, the Commission of the Observatory in Italy. We have contributed with the CIFRIS, that is a group of more than 700 experts in cryptography, to help some discussion in Italy. But what we need is, as a platform, at least at Europe.
I'm not sure. I mean, if, I think Nadia has, for the moment, an issue with their connection. But I take. I'm trying to maybe fill in here for her, because what I understand is that she's calling for a sort of, she said, blockchain as a platform. So we probably need, especially the SMEs, need a kind of commodization of blockchain, whereby this becomes a technology which is, in order for it to be widely adopted, it needs to become something that doesn't need very sophisticated developments, but can be used more as a plug and play component to have implementation in different sectors. I see that Marco was nodding. So Marco, do you what would be your reaction? Have you seen any good examples of that in your observation around the OECD countries of this platformization of blockchain?
Yes, I think we have seen this, and actually there is also an interesting aspect to consider about this, because I think, unfortunately Nadia disconnected, but I agree with, of course, as an economist, I agree with the point that that's true that when we talk about blockchain, a lot about it is understanding the consensus algorithm and see how it solves problems like how they can be Byzantine fault tolerant. That's true that it's both a bit of a cryptography. It's where cryptography and economy and game theory meet. So that's also why I think it's such an exciting team in general. But again, in the application of SMEs, the point of having for SMEs, the point of having infrastructure and security in access to this infrastructure, and again skills. So the basic understanding to use them, that's what really makes the difference. And this is also what we are seeing in general at OECD level. So in most of our countries, and what is the focus of most policymakers. So I think the structuring of the European blockchain system infrastructure is something that is, something which Europe is really setting a very interesting standards at international level. We see some similar activity in remaining in OECD countries. In Korea, they are building up a similar infrastructure again to give the basic, let's say, the basic standing point for companies to build upon. And of course, there is quite a lot of activity of this in China. Again, not an OECD country, but we know that on blockchain in China, the environment is particularly vital and particularly ahead in this sense. And to conclude on this point, I think it's the other point that we should also consider, that I think it's very important to point out, is that also we are still in a phase in which we see from many SMEs and entrepreneurs in the area that they are developing different infrastructure. So there is still like a plethora of different infrastructures, and most of them are not interoperable. So this means that, of course, this is compatible with the fact that the market is at a relatively early stage of development. So there are many competing infrastructure, and possibly this is also good that there are many different opportunities. Of course, for the developing and the application of and the use of application based on distributed ledger technologies on a large scale, the question of interoperability will become central. And so in that case, it's envisageable, or we can already think of the fact that there will probably be one or a few infrastructure that will become a bit more used by more companies, let's say a bit more dominant, because in this sense, it will help interoperability and the possibility for different systems to talk to each other.
Yeah, that's a good point. We see other technologies where the competition here in blockchain is still at the level of infrastructures. When there is the market goes to a more mature stage, we will have maybe one or a very few leading infrastructures, and then the competition will be on the services on top of the infrastructures. So we are still, the market is not mature enough, so we are still in a phase where even SMEs are going out with their own infrastructure. And I know we have several members in that area. They are competing among each others. There is still not a dominant situation in the market, which is also good in terms of innovation. But indeed, it makes the adoption a little bit more difficult because the market is a bit more fragmented. Before I go to Peteris to ask him to maybe tell us a little bit about this, let me just remind everyone who's participating in the webinar. We have users who are following this summit through the streaming, so YouTube, Twitter, and Facebook. And then we have, another bunch of people who have registered participants who are in the webinar. So those who are in the webinar, they are together with us. They are absolutely entitled to make questions and to participate in this conversation. They can do so by using the questions function and the chat function, which is provided. So we're gonna have this conversation, but if anyone wants to jump in and ask a particular question or make a comment, you are absolutely welcome to do so. We have approximately another 30 minutes to go. So there is going to be, I hope, enough time to address any question coming from the audience. Those who are following on the streaming, they can still do so by using the commenting function on YouTube, Facebook, or Twitter. That is also possible. But let me go to Peteris on this issue of interoperability and the different infrastructures competing to each others. What is your take? What is it time for Europe to intervene, or should you rather let the market decide on its own which direction it is going? I mean, it's a difficult question, but I'm sure you have given some thoughts about it. So what is your view on that?
Both. And I'll agree with several of the previous speakers. I mean, my doctorate's in law, so I'm not an economist or an engineer either, but that this is more than a technology. In a way, it's a philosophy and it's an approach. On my side, I sometimes call it the law and political economy of decentralized digital ecosystems. So if we talk about where we are, on the one hand, and perhaps not at the very beginning, but I and some other people in the commission have been following blockchain closely since about 2013. So the first legislation, other than adapting anti-money laundering to crypto assets, comes basically now with markets in crypto assets and with the pilot regime, the more than regulatory sandbox, and then possibly the Digital Services Act. So they're letting the market work, seeing how much we can adapt existing legal frameworks using a tool like the regulatory sandbox, because regulation, the civil law has adapted to trains, to cars, and then of course there's specific legislation on, let's say, the safety of trains or on driving as opposed to riding a horse. So legislation comes in, but some other aspects in the civil law or criminal law perhaps stay exactly the same and are, how to say, just applied. So this is where the regulatory sandbox comes in. But on the legal side, so we sat back a little bit. On the technological side, on the other hand, from the public sector, I like to be humble, but this is a chance to also spread a lot of compliments to all the people in the member states working on this. With the European Blockchain Partnership and the European Blockchain Services Infrastructure, we have moved together with a common vision, a common ministerial declaration, the ministers of all the countries signed, to build our common blockchain together, not to have a situation where there's 29 different blockchains and how are we gonna make them work together. Obviously, there's some initiatives in countries like Italy, the Netherlands, others that are very, very advanced, and they're going to build out and do more domestically, but our common connection is going to be infrastructures. It's simplistic to say, and then you get into about the philosophy part of it. It's an infrastructure. We also have a little bit of a different network for regulatory reporting, which needs to be very secure, and at the same time doesn't need to onboard lots of individual people, whereas the self-sovereign identity, again, will be different in multiple ways. But I think what's important, we will have different blockchain networks working, private ones, private sector ones, interoperate, and perhaps doing common things with the European Blockchain Services Infrastructure. And it's an ecosystem. you know, in my last words, we look back historically to the beginning of the internet with ARPANET, NSFNet, and then you ended up getting the internet, the World Wide Web, and from that. And that's very much a philosophy. I mean, I go back to innovation law, or the law of innovation, of how public sector investments and a public leadership can then lead to a flourishing that only the private sector can provide, with all kinds of different customized services and great and creative things.
Sounds good. Definitely, there is a need for, you know, a joint action by the private and the public sector. The other aspect, which I gathered from what Marco said earlier, and also Nadia, the other thing which is necessary besides infrastructure is also the availability of skills, of education, of talent. I don't know if Petko, as someone who's deeply involved in the industry, what is your take on that? And do you think there are enough people who have a good knowledge about blockchain in the provider SMEs, in the provider industry, and what is also the situation in the users? Do they understand enough about blockchain, or should we do a little bit more? I mean, how hard is it to find someone who can program a blockchain application? I suppose it's not something that easy at the moment, is it?
It's not in any of the IT industries to find talent in Europe, or basically everywhere in the world at the moment. We see this massive kind of a push towards this new industry for all. We see a lot more needs, and I'm quite sure that the other panelists would be much better on education than me. Obviously, some of the SMEs in Europe, like above 94%, I think, of the businesses in Europe are SMEs. So we're pretty much talking to kind of a wider audience right now. But I'm kind of 100% sure that many of them won't be able to see the blockchain. Like, it can't be touched. It cannot be. It's a technology. It's an underlying technology. But many of them will benefit from what I believe are like 5 cornerstones of the blockchain implementation in Europe. And the first one, obviously, is led by Peteris, which is the European Blockchain Service Infrastructure. And I'm 100% sure that we're going to hear many more things about it in the near future. The second is the standardization. So obviously, many of the SMEs could benefit from the standardization efforts in this area. They will be able to kind of learn and adopt best practices from experts in this area. The third is the digital euro. This is a relatively new initiative, and it's very optimistic. I think that this is one of the major roadblocks that we need to overcome if we want to see blockchain being adopted in Europe. On fourth place, I would put the digital identity, also part of the European Blockchain Service Infrastructure. So a combination of us being able to use digital first currency on a digital infrastructure like EPSI with our digital identity will kind of massively improve the innovation in the area. And last but not least, I would like to speak about the legality of the smart contracts. This is something that the Commission could also think. It's like in Europe, I mean, obviously there's a lot of obfuscation, there's a lot of hype around the blockchain, but in Europe, probably in one sentence, this will solve, the blockchain could solve a lot of the cross-border interoperability issues. This is to me at least, this is a key element. So Europe is very fragmented right now, and obviously each member state in various different ways is working on their own siloed kind of information, and the underlying blockchain technology could help all this otherwise siloed information be kind of interoperable. It's like very much like the diploma use cases with EPSI. If you graduated a school in Romania, then you can use this diploma automatically in France, for example. This is what the blockchain promises. If you're caught up speeding up in Denmark, your fine will come. This is very much the implications for the individuals. Very similar to the businesses. in near future, in 2, 3, 4 years, we'll be able to sign legally binding smart contracts on different infrastructures, probably EPSI, probably some other infrastructures as well.
Okay, thank you, Petko. There are a few people from the audience who wanted to ask something, take the floor. But before that, let me ask if Peter is, because you mentioned a couple of times the role of the Commission. If you want to have any immediate reaction to what Petko said, otherwise you will give the floor to the audience.
I mean, I think the SME is a vital partner for the Commission, along with startups. So providing a platform, and this is a little bit the not so far in the future vision for the European blockchain services infrastructure, is that there would be nodes eventually in cities, in regions, as well as the member state level, and that these could provide both services that make the lives of SMEs, etc., easier, and at the same time interact with them with their great innovative ideas, where perhaps a regulated activity could be together with a supervisor, either in a regulatory sandbox type of activity, or just be easing reporting on things like climate change. And then maybe a final word, perhaps someone will ask me something, but a last word on how to say utilizing blockchain. I mean, blockchain will really succeed when the SME that's not a digital, use case, a digital business case, SME or consumer doesn't have to know blockchain. It may be a decentralized app that'll be on their phone that's enabled for 5G or blockchain, and blockchain in the future or very soon or now, and they'll push a button and the smart contract will do something for them and they will see the benefit. An ordinary consumer or an ordinary SME selling something shouldn't have to learn blockchain. And at the same time, digital skills, the high-level digital skills also in AI, also in big data, in blockchains need to be improved. We're investing in that.
I suppose it's like when I have to sign a contract nowadays and I go to a notary. The notary is notarizing the contract, but I myself don't need to have studied the contract law and everything that the notary has been studying. I can just, buy the service from him and the thing is done. But obviously, with blockchain, this could go much faster and much cheaper. Yes, Marco. Before we give the floor to the audience, because I really want to take questions from the people in the webinar.
Absolutely.
Please.
I would just, first, welcome back, Nadia. I see she came back up.
Yes. to hear,
Yeah.
but it was a problem of my Mac.
Okay.
No worries. I guess it's but just I wanted to build upon rapidly what Petteris and also Petko was saying related to digital skills, because it's making two very brief points. One is because, of course, it's easy always to say of course, you have to raise more skills for SMEs, you have to do as much training as you can, blah, blah, blah. So like we have all heard this kind of narrative. But I think in this particular technology, and also what we have seen doing very strongly, for example, in Korea, in Australia, but also in various European countries, is about, of course, giving the training. So trying to train differently, like both the SMEs, the innovative SMEs that want to develop these products, as well as in a different way, the SMEs that could use this program. So just have a basic understanding of it. But I think what is really relevant is what Petteris was just saying about, because we are talking about ecosystem. And so what is really relevant is also the understanding of blockchain in connection with other technology, with complementary technology. So with the fact that blockchain and distributed ledger technologies, they don't exist in a vacuum. Like they have I think most of their great potential in industrial application is related to the connection with IoT, with machine learning, with different technologies that can very well interact with what is at its core a database technology, secure database technology, decentralized secure database technology. And 20 seconds, last point, we are also trying to do the other part of skills. Let's say as the OECD, we have launched also a capacity building program for policymakers, so for regulators and people in the ministries, because another big problem is that often the people in the ministries that are devising the policies it's, I mean, of course, there are experts, but in many countries, you lack the knowledge of this in the ministry and in the public sector. So there are people that are regulating and they don't have a deep understanding of it. And so we think also that organization as the OECD, we are also cooperating with the Commission. We have to play this role and try also to bring this knowledge and these skills within the governments in order to make them more effective in regulating this area. Thank you.
Yes, I agree. I think it sounds like an important thing to make sure that those who have the regulatory power, they also have the knowledge about this ever evolving technologies. Let me see if we can activate the mics of the people in the audience who have asked to ask some questions, because I think we have a couple of interesting points that want to be raised. I have Angeliki De Dopopulo, and then I have Tirk Timan who wanted to take the floor. I don't know if Angeliki can already take has a mic on, and she can ask the question herself, because I think it's a rather interesting question.
Yes, thank you, so Sebastiano, and congratulations everyone to you for the great moderation and to the speakers for the great intervention. So we'd like to ask what will be, according to the speakers, the role of the digital innovation hubs that now we see that they are created in several member states for the upskilling and reskilling of SMEs when it comes to blockchain technology, and what, according to the speakers, will be the role of industry also in this effort. Thank you very much.
Yes, I suppose that is mainly for Peteris, the role of the digital innovation hubs.
Well, the digital innovation hubs are an initiative of the European Commission, specifically to reach out and digitalize industry and SMEs, to provide them with access to artificial intelligence, IoT, big data, and of course, blockchain capabilities. And some of our other SMEs and innovative startups can actually provide to the digital innovation hubs these services and this knowledge, which then can be disseminated to others. This is part of the digitalization of the whole economy. Of course, we like lots of things from the non-virtual world, great European food and nature and sports and culture, but digitizing a lot of our business processes, our manufacturing 4.0. Another speaker also mentioned the digital programmable euro, a great report from the European Central Bank that just came out recently, and the upcoming workshop of the European Blockchain Observatory Forum, which can also help in this digitalization. So these are different pieces in the puzzle, and ideally, again, it is just to serve the SME. And let's not forget the Recovery and Resilience Plan, which will be financing for the member states to come out of this crisis with greater competitiveness and hopefully a greener and fairer economy.
Thank you, Peteris. Let me add one thing, which for the European Digital SME Alliance has been a very, very important message in when we speak about digital innovation hubs. We have said this to the Commission many, many times, and to all the policymakers in the different countries. It is not the hubs who digitize SMEs. It is the industry, it's the SMEs or the companies who will bring the technology, because I've never met a single university that is able to digitize a company. This is not their task. They are there to provide knowledge, to provide research, etc., and to complement, but the work has to be done by the market operators to digitize other market operators. So essentially, digital companies digitizing other companies, and the role of the hubs, of course, is to help. I think you said that, Peteris, as well, to make sure that the different players work together in a well-functioning ecosystem. But there is sometimes, unfortunately, from some politicians who don't understand very well the markets or the technologies, this false belief that a hub can digitize someone. This is not their role. I'm sorry, but I know that I'm speaking to well-informed people, and so you certainly know what I'm talking about. Let me go to the other question, which came from Tirk Timan. Tirk, I don't know if you can activate your mic and shoot your question.
Thanks, panelists. Also, I was just during your talks posed some questions, and I have
Go
many. The main point that I found very interesting is that indeed it's more than only a digital kind of proof where you share some data. So it's indeed about this trust and consensus building. So my question would be, what kind of systems is it replacing when it comes to building trust and negotiation? So this, I have the feeling in my own experience in blockchain that for now it's really it's a big push scenario, that blockchain can create a lot of opportunities and solve a lot of problems. But for a lot of SMEs, it's also not really clear which kind of problems it really can solve. So, and what kind of processes that it intervenes into. So if you say, okay, we can replace the notary, have you asked the notaries how they think about this? It can replace on-the-spot negotiations, but on-the-spot negotiations in person are sometimes very important, crucial moments that cannot be replaced by, we fix this via blockchain in an abstract, non-personal way. So have you thought about also what kind of systems of negotiation and trust blockchains bite into, and how that changes particular relationships between actors in these ecosystems?
Thanks.
So it's a big question, but it's just a reflection on that.
No, thanks, Tirk. I think I understand the question. I mean, maybe Nadia, because you have been absent for a while and you were nodding while Tirk was asking the question, maybe you want to first activate your mic and then try to reply to the question.
Now, yes.
Yes, go ahead.
Yes, I was trying to figuring out a quick reply, but just to show the way. It is exactly one of the point, because as a blockchain does not make coffee, a lot of wonderful things, but not. So it is always a question not of trust, but of trust minimizing in the process that occurs in an ecosystem. So the SME in itself alone probably will never have a benefit of adopting or using blockchain in negotiation or in trust. But if belongs to an ecosystem, to a business that has many stakeholders, you can imagine processes where you are involved that can be improved with the blockchain. And but it is not a question of simply translating the contracts, because we have already seen that legal contracts cannot be translated in smart contracts. It is not simply a question of mapping a process in the digital transformation in the ledger, because it is not enough. One example that I can bring, I don't know if it is interesting for all SME, but I think that all SME have data. They produce a lot of data and consume a lot of data. And how they consume, how they produce, how they exploit data for their business can be improved by a blockchain approach. But here comes my position in this talk, because what we need are standards, or at least platforms that can be used by SME to exchange data. This is a very powerful case, because all SME have data, but if we look really what they are doing with data, we will discover that they have a lot of problems, because if they want to exploit data of other SME or data belonging to other parties, it is a question, because if you are an ecosystem, but you are Amazon or you are Airbnb and Facebook, you have also the legal office that can help you. You have an infrastructure, a big infrastructure. If you are as me, perhaps you have some ideas, you need some data. So for instance, making data circulating among SME with a platform that is a general purpose, not vertical, not a platform for energy utilities. We know very well the example that works, but a platform at country level, at regional level. In this use case, I see a potential for SME to belong to this. It is not a use case that is developed by a single SME, but I think that it will bring a lot of value, because the data strategy is crucial for every aspect. For instance, for the Green Deal and all the sustainability issues, how to tackle the tracking of goods or food that is produced, how to certify the carbon emission or whatever you want. So in the field of data, I see a potential for SME. It is always true that we have a lot of use cases in supply chain, IoT, and so on. But I think that these are very vertical, depends, they are really very different use cases, and also the approaches cannot be the same. You cannot imagine the same approach for food and for health and for clinical trials. While for data, there is just like also a critical mass for which we can think to data produced by consumers, data produced by users, data produced by machine, that we can think a bunch of use cases where there is a collaboration. There are standards, there are skills, there are the digital hub that do the networking, there are the ideas from SME.
The data issue, I think, is very important, Nadia, because it's blockchain is extremely promising in the sense that if we can apply blockchain to the data access, ideally we will be in a situation where we are able finally to let the data flow without a platform essentially owning all the data, which is essentially happening with the personal data in the case of the big social media platforms, Facebook, Google, and so on. The blockchain will promise to do that, and we have startups actually in our membership who are even trying to do that. They promise to deliver, a system which allows data to flow from company to company, from people to companies offering services without the platform actually owning that data, which is what is unfortunately happening with the big platform, the big American platforms that we have nowadays. So it's a big promise, and I really hope personally that it will happen one day. We are heading towards the conclusion. Maybe, I'm sorry, Nadia, but we need to quit in a couple of minutes. I'd like to ask each of you like a 30-second last statement, things that are your takeaways or things that you couldn't say that you think are important for this panel. Let me start with Petko, because you haven't spoken very much. So you are the first. Take your time.
Thank you. So I'll try to be as quick as possible. To me, the distributed ledger technology and blockchain are the universal, it's like cross-border element that might be the foundation of the digital Europe. So I'm very happy that initiatives like the digital euro and European blockchain service infrastructure could actually help Europe be one of the leaders in this field globally.
Thanks. Nadia, maybe your turn, because you have been absent for a while.
Just to see that ideas have to come from SME. SME there is plenty of ideas coming from SME, but the government initiatives at European level have to help to fill in two gaps. One is skill. The other is the funding gaps, because we are not lacking for ideas. We are lacking for for initiatives to help SME to develop their ideas and to help them in the long journey. So with funding and initiative in this way, because it's a long journey. A blockchain is not a mid-term, a short-term the cycle of the innovation in blockchain is broader than what the SME are able to see only with their
yes,
what
point
can
taken.
afford the
Point taken. Thank you, Nadia. It's a long journey, definitely. I think this we can agree. Marco, would you like to shoot your last words?
Yes,
Now?
very, yeah, very, very quickly. Just that, of course, we have spoken up to this moment about what governments, like governments and again, can do. Something that we have seen that is very also in our case studies on which we have some evidence is how it is more effective and important for governments to cooperate at the different level of government. So we talk about the commission, national, regional, municipal level. So really to try to get the whole picture together. So this cooperation within government at different levels and within governments across areas of expertise. So in financial, industry, and all the different industries, this is very important. And the second and last point, so this is the 2 points related to government related. And then the last point is about really, I think that in these specific areas, it will be all about SMEs, like what we were discussing before about the flow of data and this, let's say, decentralized promised land in which data will flow and will not be owned by single large operators. I think that's why it will be entrepreneurs, small companies and medium companies that will really bring the innovation that will be needed to bring this technology to its maturity. Thank you.
Thank you, Marco. And finally, Peteris.
Thank you very much. I'll just underline that we see this area of self-sovereign identity, decentralized identity, and the decentralized, individualized management of data flows as being an area of very high potential. And then again, this is more than technology. This isn't just cryptography, software, timestamping, etc. I mean, this is a question of democracy and of really giving power to the individual and moving to a fairer economy, maybe a more innovative economy that really should have lots of opportunities for startups and SMEs. And I think this is really exciting for us.
All right. So with this, I'd like to thank everyone, Petko, Peteris, Marco, and Nadia for your great participation in the panel. We will close this first panel here, and the second panel will start at 10:45 under the moderation of Dirk Thiemann from TNO. So stay connected, and we'll talk to you in a few minutes.
parts of Europe that will share their experiences. And we want to look into what does the adoption and the use of blockchain and related technologies actually mean for your business, or what can it mean? What are successful use cases, and also what are questions that rise on both the technological operational side, as well as what can Europe do, or what should Europe do to help the adoption of blockchain-based solutions for SMEs. And we'll go through a series of questions after a short presentations from the 4 following panelists. We have on my left top corner, but maybe for you it's different, Ms. Margherita Leder, who comes from Italia for Blockchain and is the chair of the INATBA Education Working Group. And she has she's been leading a fintech communication agency focused on cross-continental communication between Europe and Japan. She has done many things on this topic, but for today she represents the Italia for Blockchain within INATBA, the organization powered by the European Commission, where she co-chairs the working group on education. Then we have Giacomo Benvenuti, who is the CTO of 3D Oxides, who also is a physicist with an academic research experience on multidisciplinary and highly innovative processes, and has acted on as a consultant in various forms. The company right now that he's representing, 3D Oxides, specialized in 3D printing of smart and multicultural thin film materials. And for there, it's interesting also to hear from their particular industry how blockchain can play a role. Then we have Mr. Yannis Kyriakidis, who is from Change Digital BVBA, but today speaks from the point of view of a startup called eOrigin that offers solutions in the logistics and customs compliance. And he will talk about his long experience and actual challenges and successes in blockchain for his company. And last but not least, we have Mr. Jean-Luc Verhelst, who is a blockchain consultant and co-founder of the Hive Blockchain Society in Belgium. And he's author of the book Bitcoin, the Blockchain and Beyond, which published in 2017. And he will go into his experience as well, being also on the coaching side of helping SMEs adopting blockchain. And he has based his experience on a long chain of blockchain trainings that he provided in many places all over the world, actually, when I look at the list. First, I want to start with Mrs. Margherita Leder to give a 5-minute introduction.
Good morning, everyone. I hope everybody is well rested after the coffee. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for the introduction, and thank you for hosting this panel. It's always a pleasure for Italia for Blockchain to be joining these conversations, as we think sparkling conversations amongst entrepreneurs can really represent an added value on how blockchain is finding new applications. As Italia for Blockchain, we are a consortium of over 600 members across Italy. Most of our members are Italians, but we are happy to have members across from Europe as well. And what we are trying to achieve is to make sure that companies, entrepreneurs, and especially SMEs are having a good understanding on how blockchain can benefit their business, starting from the point that not every operation needs blockchain, but if you find a good operation in your business that can benefit from blockchain, you can have great results. That's our starting point, and that's what we're doing, and that's what we would like to share today. So there's 2 specific aspects I would like to tackle in my first 5 minutes. The first one is, and I'm happy to be the first one, as I know that the colleagues here will go in much more interesting experiences after this, but my starting point is that there has to be a strong focus on education of the decision makers within the SME sector. As I said, there are interesting applications of blockchain. I'm going to share some expertise that we have and what we have seen in our daily operations. But the key starting point is that if you do not understand how blockchain works and how it can actually benefit your business, you're going to get lost, and you're going to lose faith in the fact that this type of technology can really be interesting in this moment. We are living in this momentum. We all know that this world is going across sectors, but as an organization, we have structured a lot of educational paths together that have been certified by CEPAS, both for the decision makers and the technology heads, blockchain innovation manager, blockchain technology specialist. These are 2 courses that we've been working on. And I would really like to emphasize this first message from my end for all the people who are listening today. If you don't know blockchain, it's okay. It's perfectly normal because you're an entrepreneur, you're working on your business. Maybe you've been working on your business for 20 years, maybe for 1 year, but you have been working on what you know. And the first point is to learn new things. Get in touch with people who you know can deliver good content. We are a really interesting point of reference in Italy, but there are several organizations and colleagues across Europe. So train yourself, be ahead of the game before the game smashes you, and then you have issues in understanding, oh my God, what have I done? So that's the first point. And the second key point I would like to emphasize is there are already many solutions that are active and live, and you can directly have access to. You do not need to develop your own solution and go in this really complex environment if you don't think it's the best fit for you. There are many companies offering good solutions. I would like to share one that I'm really proud to mention, because one of our members, Blockchain Italia, has recently been awarded a really interesting award by an Italian organization within the Internet Forum by the UN, awarded by the Ministry of Labor, for how they have worked on a notarization of processes, of documentation, especially during this complex time where really meeting people is getting hard, and you have anyway a need of notarizing your documents. They have provided a solution, a software that does this, working on blockchain, on Ethereum, but also on Algorand blockchain, which is really interesting, as it's a really interesting expertise in the market. And we have seen many companies, SMEs especially, benefiting from working with them. And that's the key point I would also like to emphasize. In the moment you decide to train yourself, you will meet several companies who offer several services. Try to have a good understanding of what they're trying to sell to you, and see if the people that can really understand how to apply blockchain in their business are the operations manager, are the CEOs who are active in the operations area. Involve those people. Do not only leave these decisions to the technology heads, not because they don't know, of course they know, they have a really huge understanding, but understanding the processes is the key starting point. If you can have these 2 people at the table when you have the kind of decision, if you train these people well, you can have really interesting expertise and you can find good applications. We've been working closely, for example, with intellectual property organization, professional organizations such as Indicam, and we have seen that having the operations managers at the table and them telling the companies providing solution, as the notarization solution just mentioned, we have this issue, can you fix it? And yeah, how? That's the point. Ask the right questions. Don't go for, don't get lost in the technicalities. Have a good understanding. If you train yourself and if you have really good partnership with other SMEs who are developing the solutions, I'm sure they will find great applications. The one I just mentioned is a great example, but there are others. And with that said, I think my opening statement is done. So I'll give the mic back to the moderator. Thank you very much.
Thank you for this very clear intro and for the call to educate yourself, which I really like. Can we move the mic to Yanis, who also has some slides to present?
Yes, I hope you can hear me. I will start to show my slides. Okay, perfect. I will show my screen. I hope you see my slides. There we go. Is visible for everybody? Yes? Okay. I go ahead. Yes, I wanted to, quickly introduce about myself. So my name is Yanis Rakides. I've been consultant in the blockchain and Internet of Things for the past 5 years, especially in the industry 4.0. So mainly analyzing the possible use case, let's say, with different customers. I'm also chairman of the Belgian committee for the blockchain distributed ledger. Standardization is an important point for the evolution of the adoption of blockchain. What I wanted to present here today, because we are going to talk about use case, is to show, let's say, my own use case, to introduce it, especially because it's also a funded project by Europe. And I think it's a good opportunity to see what are the possible business, let's say, challenges and needs regarding technology like blockchain, and also especially regarding self-sovereign identity, because it's related to that. We are with eOrigin, active in the logistics sector, in the international trade. So the company eOrigin was recently created to offer solutions to improve customs compliance of products. So typically everything related to export of products in Europe. So 100 billion euros, that's the value of the VAT fraud in Europe each year. That's terrific, isn't it? These frauds not only represent a loss of revenue for the UE, but for Europe, but also create unfair competition for European industry and especially SMEs. These frauds also prevent Europe from putting in place policies that support the import of products that meet quality criteria to have a sustainable, fair, secure market. So if we look to recently studies of the European Consumer Organization, we see, for example, that 2/3 of the products bought from online marketplace failed safety test. So basically, we want to help reducing all of this. So basically, our mission is to provide a unique solution helping fair business to grow. We provide trustable information about products following a collaborative approach, allowing each actor to gradually enrich and certify products information and make it available online and safely. Well, basically, the objective is to re-establish this chain of trust between the manufacturer, the seller, buyers, and also legal authorities. So we talk about the public, and this by improving customs compliance of products. This is, of course, possible here because the underlying technology, and we talk about SSI, self-sovereign identity, enables to achieve by design high data quality and authenticity, and also sovereignty and confidentiality. We want also to make it interoperable with a EU blockchain framework. That's why we participate also within this initiative at the European level for SSI. But it's not enough. If we want to have massive adoption, I mean, there must be a business need. So companies, we want to improve, of course, the operational efficiency in a simple way on the internet. Simple is really important for us. And at the same time, we expect that European customs authorities support a solution which reduce customs duty fraud and VAT fraud. When people ask me to describe quickly blockchain in one sentence, I like that sentence. And reading that blockchain offers a new way to digitally collaborate with trust in large ecosystem. To put this in the context of the Digital SME and the recent position paper on the Digital Service Act. So I'm reading from Digital SME, believe that EU should aim to create an harmonized digital single market that is open and competitive and allows innovative upcoming companies to thrive. It means for SMEs more interoperability for competitive open market. So in other words, services on internet should be only provided by gatekeeper platform, like it is today, only a few. And also everything related to the burdens for SMEs we should avoid, and to make it basically simple. So that's why I believe blockchain technologies and EU can support a strong digital market for SMEs in Europe. Blockchain will contribute to speed up the digitalization of SMEs and to enable collaboration in an open ecosystem with security and trust, while preserving the sovereignty. I think it's really a real opportunity for a fairer market for SMEs at the European level. So that was about my quick presentation, and I leave the micro for someone else.
Thank you, Yanis, for this statement, which offers a very needy call and also a very timely call to see if that what we also want to see is how blockchain can actually deliver or help in this promise. Maybe from a more critical perspective or some other experiences and some points to raise, I want to ask Giacomo to share his points and his experiences on how the blockchain ecosystem for his sector looks like. Can you share the slides? Yeah, we can see your slides. Perfect. Getting there. We can see your slides, so you can start, but I don't know if you can get them full screen. Otherwise, this works as well. It's readable.
I have a new version. I cannot. Okay.
Yeah.
So. Window otherwise. Okay. Yeah, it was masked by yeah. So. Good morning, everybody. My name is Giacomo Benvenuti. I will present what my company is doing. So we are trying to make physical and digital identities for objects. So actually, today there are a lot of societal and economical pains with fake identities, identity usurpation, fake non-certified information, contract litigation, cybersecurity issues, data sovereignty loss, trust intermediaries that are a break to business, and a lot of lack of interoperability. And this generates huge costs in time, money, and in sometimes in reputation. So blockchain might provide a strong solution to address these issues, but they are not enough. Actually, our vision is just to provide a solution that is based on a physical unclonable function. It's a sort of fingerprint to objects, combination with a blockchain, or I would say a distributed ledger, such that cyber-physical system could monitor physical processes, manage business, create a digital twin of the physical world, and provide decentralized decisions such that people and objects can cooperate with each other, and machine to machine and machine to human in real time. So what we are trying to develop is a self-sovereign identity to objects to enable traceability and authentication at physical and digital level with data, improve cybersecurity, and with the blockchain, manage the blockchain footprint. And in the end, it should provide smarter and trust-enabled objects. So how it's based, we have 3 technological assets. So we have a nano 4D printer for semiconductor materials that can provide this sort of fingerprints that you can see, this sort of etiquettes with colors. And finally, a new approach, a new vision to blockchain with a disruptive model that is user-centric, holistic, semantic, scalable to IoT and very large systems, and provide strong interoperability with low human supervision. So what the purpose of that is just to provide unprecedented opportunities, to provide a unique platform for the 4.0 era that is smart, connected, agile, and trustful, enabling direct machine-to-machine, fast and efficient data management, scalability to very large system to make a new internet, and eventually a digital twin that can be managed in real time to address digital single markets. reduce intermediators, and provide a user-centric management tool to avoid loss of governance and sovereignty for everybody. And further than business, I think it can also provide a totally new approach of trust to foster new societal models, actually. So maybe in the future, we'll not speak about distributed ledger, but distributed trust with a bottom-up approach that will be much more trustful and powerful than actual governance models that are always top-down. So in the end, what we try to provide is to provide competitiveness without losing sovereignty and privacy, because actually the main impact of blockchain, if you can reduce intermediaries, you can provide new business models to go straight to the market with less intermediaries. So it's a very powerful way just to lift the bottlenecks to market, but also to manage your all your chain of production, your chain of distribution, and as such, it's also potentially quite threatening, because if you cannot control how you use your data, how the data are distributed in your network, and who has access to your data, it can be a very powerful way just to reduce barriers of entry to new businesses. And it's also it could be difficult for you after to keep governance and sovereignty about your data being based only on IP that is not very used in SME context. So this is more or less my vision of what blockchain will be used to for small, medium enterprise, but also with a larger scheme at a more global level. Thank you.
Thank you, Giacomo, for that vision on how blockchain can evolve. We'll have some questions later, but I first want to wrap up with Jean-Luc, who, from his experience, might have some comments about and some other ideas to share on how the blockchain will develop in Europe.
Thank you. Slides, sorry?
You don't have slides to show?
I don't have slides, no, thank you very much.
Good. And the mic is...
So I'll be speaking a bit more from my personal experience as a trainer within Europe, but also in other regions, as well as a founder of a Belgium community around blockchain. I think what's absolutely key to understand when we speak about blockchain for SMEs and for you to actually see whether or not you think you will need blockchain, it's to understand that blockchain, it was already a bit mentioned earlier this morning, blockchain is always about a community. So it's all about creating an ecosystem of different players around you that with who you can work together and with who you share a common interest in collaborating. And within that community, like in every other community, you usually have some rules that exist and that needs to be followed. What blockchain will make possible is to create more transparency in these rules and actually making sure that from a technological point of view, we will get as close as possible to ensuring that these rules are being followed by design. Now, in terms of types of applications that exist for SMEs, but that's applicable for everyone who wants to work with blockchain, I always like to say that there are 4 types of applications that can be considered today. There are more, but today I think it's good to limit ourselves to 4. The first one is having trust in the authenticity of the data that is being provided to you. Not always necessarily the data, because someone can still fake data that he puts into the blockchain, but you're always sure about the authenticity of the data, where it comes from, who puts it in there. If it's incorrect data, then at least you know who is liable for that. So that's the first one, trust in the authenticity of data. The second one is the settlement of all type of things through the use of tokens. Now, a token can represent many different things. It can be the share of a company, especially if you're an SME, you have a few shareholders. It might be interesting to look into that as a way for you to transfer shares between yourself. It could be a payment system, it could be an incentive system. A lot of loyalty system exists. It's something I see coming back with multiple of my clients, where they try to put in place a loyalty system. We'll be able to talk more into detail about that later on if you want to do so. The third one, so the first one, trust of authenticity of data. Second one, settlement of tokens. The third one is creating some automation. We now have tokens that exist on a blockchain, where we can put those in smart contracts that will basically make sure that these tokens are being redistributed based on a certain number of conditions that are being met. And the last one is the one Giacomo mentioned as well, which is all about the machine-to-machine economy, where you would have objects that tomorrow can have their identity on a blockchain and start making transactions within smart contracts and so on. We can think, for example, about if you're in a shared flat and someone buys a washing machine. So let's say today as an SME, you're working and you produce washing machines, for example, and you would say, okay, let's add some blockchain element into that. My washing machine can now receive payments and make payments. How can which additional features can I add to my washing machine? Well, maybe the washing machine is going to be used by someone who lives in a shared flat. Someone invests in the washing machine, but every time someone wants to use the washing machine, and who didn't pay for it initially, he needs to make a €1 payment to open the door of the washing machine. Very simple application, but just to trigger a bit the thinking of what is being possible. So if you want to keep looking a bit on what blockchain could mean for you, there are a few questions I always like to ask or steps that are good to take is first look into your environment. Remember, it's always about the community. So who are your current stakeholders? Maybe that's your clients, maybe that's your suppliers, maybe those are our regulators, etc. And in this environment, do you have somewhere a lack of transparency? Is there sometimes information that takes more time to arrive to you? Do you need a better coordination amongst yourself? And if you do have that better coordination, you'll be able to automate more things, maybe by using smart contracts, etc. So it's all about, to me, blockchain, it's two things. It's either about improving the current operating model of what you're doing by using the technology to just improve it. But sometimes it's also about creating new markets and new services. I mentioned the case of a washing machine. If I do have a bit more time during the talk, I will definitely be happy to touch upon what for example, a few banks did regarding trade finance in offering new services to SME specifically here, and also what is happening in the Belgium landscape. But the bottom line to me is always, well, as was mentioned by Margarita, train yourself to understand really well what you're talking about. And then in terms of maturity, I agree with the fact that yes, there's already quite a few things that are possible today. It's no longer like 3 years ago, but the big potential of blockchain also still remains to be built, in my opinion, and therefore we need platforms as the one from the European Commission that is being set up. That's it for me. Thank you.
Thanks, Jean-Luc. Very clear and concise. Personally, I'm very curious about some stories, especially about the new types of services. I was intrigued by that last point because we often see these technologies first landing as a form of business intelligence and operating internally better or smarter. But actually, what we want to see is some transformational change in companies that also indeed introduce new types of services and new propositions. And I was curious from all four of you, if you saw that happening, or if it's indeed still more on the business intelligence side, and also if you could say something either from your own experience as a startup or as looking at startups, what are the main kind of 2 or 3 drivers and barriers that you see when they start, when an SME starts building a blockchain-based service or a proposition? Margarita, can I start with you?
Yeah, thank you. So regarding your first point, I truly believe that there is an added value in applying blockchain that is, as many colleagues shared before, is mainly connected to automation, disintermediations of many operations, and specifically the compression somehow of the human error index. So there is the main features blockchain, like immutability, transparency, if well executed on a relevant platform. There is a really compelling element that is the compression of asymmetries within the market. So there is true added value that we are seeing. I mentioned one really, as Jean-Luc was mentioning, a really simple example I did myself before. It's in the moment you do not have to work and spend hours and times on processes you can automate, and you make sure that these processes are authentic, that the people adding the data are the ones who are supposed to add the data. You have this, you speed up the process, you speed up the operations, and you make sure that there is this trust that is built and that it's really effective. So we are seeing episodes of this. We are seeing really good applications. I have to say there is still some restraint from many companies to be active in these innovations and applying this technology. First of all, sometimes because they don't understand it yet, and that's what we've been sharing before, like the need to train. On the other side, there is, and this is for sure, like one barrier, like having a good comprehension and avoiding expert of blockchain talking to each other all the time, but maybe having the expert of blockchain going to talk with people who do not know it and can benefit from it is something that is still in the process. And so there is this kind of restraint. For example, as Italia for Blockchain, we have been really active together with Digital SME Alliance, and we've been working together with them in also our analysis. We've founded together the Italian chapter with Digital SME. We're part of the network of the Alliance. So we are seeing many episodes of this. And what was asked to us at the beginning was like, how do you think we can enlarge the scope of this application? So this is one point. There are other points that I'm sure colleagues will share later regarding regulations and complications. The regulation is not moving as fast as business. This is a really multiple times said sentence, that regulation is lower compared to business. But I think that from the private sector there is a boost that has to be synergized a bit better with the regulators as well. And another restraint I feel, complication in the market, is regarding the opposite side of what I said before. So companies and organizations get into the blockchain and having this will of having blockchain services because they think it's a good marketing word. The result of this is that the other actors lose trust in what can actually be concretely done, but the company itself does not really benefit from it. And in the end, in the medium term, this game is clear to everybody, and the company itself is not getting a really good result out of it. And we have many examples. I will not share examples of that. We don't do that, but I have seen really buzzword approach. And even if this was supposed to be happening, 5 years ago and not now, it's still happening. And I really would like to advise all the entrepreneurs here not to go for that. Sometimes the marketing department is pushing for that, but I really would like, sometimes when we meet companies and bring the marketing people on their first meeting regarding blockchain, and we get really worried, and we are really straightforward. And you need the operations people here, and you don't need your marketing. You can have the PR strategy after. But all these elements together, yeah, they create still some difficulties of penetration of the market. But I'm really positive that there will be good evolutions in the upcoming future.
Thank you. I like the warning also about the buzzwords diluting actually the technology and the term. Yannis, Giacomo, do you have any comments on that, or any other drivers and barriers from your experience to share?
Yes, well, we're in the logistics, so we see globally that managed blockchain platform created by big players will continue to widely spread. So this is basically a value that is being used so far by big enterprise with closed ecosystems. So this will continue. Now, when we see more the side on the SMEs, I think the strong values like sovereignty, those are the buzzwords. Decentralized, transparent, neutral. I mean, those are really the values that federate more companies to a more open and fair market. I really insist on that. This should drive new opportunities to SMEs. I mean, I'm not saying that it was not in the past, but more and more. All this decentralized, distributed identity management has been always a key. Jean-Luc mentioned that. It has been key in the discussion of standardization many times and still ongoing today. I mean, it's the key to authentifying information. As long as you don't know basically who is on the other side about one data, one information, you cannot prove or verify this information. I mean, any system that you put in place has no sense. And this is not done once. I mean, it cannot be done by only one SME. It has to be globally done, basically, with all the level of trust within the ecosystem. So, so now, when we talk about technology like SSI, which is more new and promising, I think, for SMEs, I mean, we give here really the opportunity to control the confidentiality of their information while allowing a fast and efficient exchange of all type of information. So what I can see as an impact for them that are important, it will enable, I mean, a better management of their intellectual property on this aspect, a higher level of security and control and data accessibility with a lower investment for SMEs, because it costs quite a lot. And if you have a build framework to do that, it's quite more accessible. The digital transformation, well, this can be an accelerator for them because we talk about authenticity, prove that data is verifiable. They don't have to put a complete structure in place for that. A lot of new use cases will appear, that's for sure, and fighting frauds, fighting unfair international competition centralized by e-commerce giants, for example, that's are the opportunities today. Now, when I see the main hurdles that I could mention as an SME, I mean, let's focus on business. You know, there is a technology. There has been a lot of discussion and hype words, like we said. It's a very difficult technology, basically, to understand when you go in details about the consensus, about all the things. I mean, we need to use blockchain as a mean. Maybe it doesn't appear as such for SME, but it's really promising. And but do not focus on the technology only. And if I can give advice for any SME, let's talk business first, and let's see if, I mean, there's an existing blockchain that can feed into that. But that should be your focus today. And if you need to develop basically something on the blockchain, you will find it on the market today. After 5 years, 4 years, you will find it. Now, what is my biggest concern today is about having a trust in the large ecosystem. And this trust is not something simple, like we said. I mean, we need to have the help and the support of Europe. When we talk about identity, I mean, it's a theme for Europe for such. There is the technical trust, there is a human trust, there is a governance to be put in place. I mean, there are many layers that have to be put all together within an ecosystem, and this cannot be done alone, but it has to be really speed up today by also the European and all the SMEs together that at some point needs to collaborate also. So that was my my view on that.
Yeah, so lots to be done still. Giacomo, do you have the same vision? Or do you have something to add to that in terms of drivers and barriers?
There are very good points that have been raised. With regard to transparency, I think that this is one of the main purposes of blockchains, but for business, it can also be a pain because you don't want to share with everybody your business assets and models or networks. So there are still a lot of things that blockchains today need to address at technical level. I think at business level, we can imagine every kind of business. It will enable to accelerate and reduce costs for whatever kind of business. But we also need to consider that it's very important to start to think it not as a tool to make business, but also as a tool to make strategic positioning with the capacity to know exactly to track your data with vendor relation management, model tool, just to know exactly how your data are used inside your company, between your network, as a private level and at a global level, at a public level, because today you have absolutely no control where your data are going. And the problem today we face with the big data, that you need to treat in real time, and you cannot do it because you are just under this deluge of data, they call it, and you cannot treat it sufficiently fast enough for SMEs, but also for large companies to take rapid decisions. You need something you need objects with artificial intelligence to support. And so this is for me a key element in controlling what will happen in the future. You need to control each object that is managing the data or generating the data in the case of the Internet of Things, where your decision will be supported by this analysis and complementary approach of these objects. So for me, it's very important that this topic is not just only addressed in the perspective of doing short-term business and enhance your sales or whatever. It should be addressed on a very long term because it's a question of survival for the companies and not only of making a better business.
Luke, do you also see that as working with more short-term, short-cycled startup and ideas? Do they also think about the long term, or how should they think about the long term?
Well, I would say there are two. Well, that's going to be depends type of answer. I think you do have startups who are more into the, and I'm speaking about startups in the consulting of blockchain, and there they will definitely look more into short term, making sure that they sell their project, they have their proof of concept working, etc. Then you do have startups who are more what I would call industry startups. We have, for example, one in Belgium that works around the supply chain for the port of Antwerp. There you will see that they have a much longer long-term approach because they're building basically a product that will enable services, and it's their own. I would say they are the shareholders of that product. So that's definitely something that we can differentiate. So it depends. I want to bounce back on Giacomo's comments regarding reducing costs and strategic positioning for blockchain, and I'll try to give an example here. For reducing costs, I'll speak about something that was done by large corporations, but that shows the potential of blockchain. You might be aware of what trade finance is, but I'll just explain it briefly. It's basically someone, let's say I'm in Belgium and I want to buy a container of bananas from someone in Singapore, but I don't know the seller, and we basically don't trust each other. So what we're going to do today is we're going to go to our banks. My bank is going to issue a letter of credit. On the other hand, I'm also going to get a guarantee that they have the necessary bananas in the container, etc. And that's how we're going to create trust. My bank will go to a corresponding bank of the seller over there, show the letter of credit, and by doing so, the seller will actually trust that he will get his money. Now, this is a process today that banks use and that works between them, but it's a costly process because, well, of course, there's a lot of paperwork involved. There's some codes that needs to be placed. Many different players are involved. I'm not even speaking about the export agency and the customs here that might be integrated as well in the solution. It's basically a costly process that is only available to larger companies or companies who have the budget. What KBC, together with a few other banks in Europe, did, basically leading trade finance bank of each country, they set up a blockchain system amongst themselves. So they have this web of trust amongst the different banks, and they decided to put the whole process, the letter of credit, and so on a blockchain. So what they're doing in there is first layer, they're just storing information. There's no payment done on the blockchain. But just by collectively sharing that information amongst themselves, they managed to be much more efficient. Things are digital, much more digital now, And that means that they reduce the cost of having a single trade finance transaction. And they reduce the cost so significantly that today for them it's a new market. It means that they were not able to afford these services for SMEs, for example. Today, these banks can offer trade finance services to SMEs. So I think this is just an example that illustrates the reduction of cost and how, even if it's not managed by SMEs at this point of time, it does benefit SMEs as well in this point. The second one is more related to strategic positioning, and I'll expand a bit more on loyalty systems here. Imagine you're an SME that is well established in its community, and within that community, there's maybe a local currency, maybe there's not a local currency. That's something that needs to be figured out further on. But there are multiple players around in the same street, merchants, retailers, whatever, that want to kind of work together to create a dynamic. And I'm not going to go into the details of every loyalty system that is possible, but you could have something like a joint loyalty system where there's a company that provides, I don't know, a certain type of goods, and there's a company that provides another type of goods, and not competitors, or maybe they are, but they still want to work together. And they decide to issue loyalty points that can be redeemed, maybe only at one of the other players, but maybe at multiple of these other players. Today, you don't have that system in place, or it's very rare to see that system in place because it's very difficult. It means, well, first you need a community, but that's the easy part in this case. But then you need to coordinate that community, and you need maybe someone even to coordinate that community. And you need to trust that whoever writes that there's a certain number of points given here were redeemed there. And it's basically a mess, sorry to say it, but it's basically a mess to reconcile who should pay for what in such a loyalty system. You can imagine if someone goes 10 times to a place, receives 10 points, but then decides to spend these 10 points in another place, well, there's someone who gets all the benefit from it, and there's someone who's giving something away for 10 points, but without really having some money coming in. And having a blockchain will allow us to see all these points where they are being granted, where they are being redeemed, and basically make a settlement afterwards between these different players. So in this case, that will mean that community of people basically kind of reinforces itself. And I think that as a strategic positioning as a community could be interesting. Now, in terms of limits, I've seen on cases, I think the biggest one is by far politics. It's human nature to always question things, and I think that's good, but also to kind of be a bit scared of what's going to happen and to think about their own interest. I'll take an example of a company that was, or a use case with multiple stakeholders. I think there were 5 stakeholders, if I remember well, who basically wanted to share a lot of information about their clients. And they all agreed that sharing information would make everybody's life easier. But then, of course, there were some of these players who had much more information than some smaller players in the ecosystem. And then the whole point comes, yes, but okay, I'm going to give you a lot of information, but I'm not going to benefit a lot from it. And so there, it's very important then so this is typically a political problem where some players say like, okay, but maybe I don't want to do this because I'm going to help you and you're not going to help me. So there, it's all about objectivizing the case. And in this case, specifically, it was to look at all the different fields of data that would be provided, put a value on them, and then find a system to work with that as well. So politics, don't underestimate it. It's really, because we're working within communities, it's a dynamic that needs to exist, and definitely be aware of some players who might be less motivated and so on, because that plays a big role. The second one is regulation. I think it's absolutely key for every application to very early on look at the legal side, and I'm not speaking necessarily of the legal side from the technology, but really the legal side of what you want to achieve to make sure that you remain compliant with the existing laws within your blockchain application. So it's an easy one to do, but just not one not to forget. And then the last one is privacy. We mentioned identities as being a key point, because sometimes identities are known or are more or less known on the blockchain. I've often realized that clients were, okay, but then my competitor will have that information about me, and we'll see maybe who my clients are and so on, and I want to avoid that. What I want to say there is that's indeed a very good thought to have in the beginning, because that means that you understand the basics of blockchain, but it's also something that is very easy to solve as well in one day training, I would say, by understanding really how identities work and how you can manage your identities in such a way that, for example, the government knows who all your clients are, but nobody else knows who your clients are. And so that there are different solutions that exist there regarding managing identity. And I wanted to say that privacy is something that comes out a lot, but that can be solved as well. Thank you.
Thanks. Thanks also for noting the regulatory aspect, and also Margarita pointed to that. Before saying something about that, more towards what we as a panel think the Commission could or should do more, are there any people on the line, startups, panel listeners in that have specific questions right now for the panel or the speakers? If so, then you can pose them. I guess the mics are open. I don't know for sure how that works, because I see in the chat no specific questions yet coming up. So please take the opportunity if there are any specific questions for the panelists or for all the panelists, and pose them now. Or not. Very timid participants today. Okay, then, well, please be aware that you can always ask questions in the next 10 minutes. What I wanted to ask is, for all of you, there's a lot of talk always about the difficulty of these new technologies entering a legal regime. On the other hand, you can also argue that blockchain solutions take away some of the compliance challenges or help with that. So there's always a double-sided coin in this kind of application of new technologies. What in the current policy landscape is the most pressing thing to address? Is that indeed GDPR compliance, or where do you feel that the startups that you have yourself or that you train or coach, where are the biggest hurdles in that respect? And I'll post it to anyone who wants to answer there.
Can start. Yeah, I think the growing interest in blockchain might be helped by different things for standardization. I mean, we need not only for SMEs, but when you talk about setting up, let's say, a complete ecosystem again around blockchain, you have to address a lot of architecture aspect, governance, security, distributed identity, smart contract, legal aspect. So all the things need standardization. We need guidelines, clear guidelines set up on paper to say how we can basically build trust by setting these best practices. That's really one key point. We are working hard on the ISO on that. Let's be clear, it's progressing very well. There are several documents being already released today, but all these aspects will be to be finalized in the next 1 or 2 years, certainly. And then you have also, I mean, when you see all the blockchain being created, and we talk about some creating products on the blockchain and so on, and big companies creating their own ecosystem, I think we come a little bit with the multi-chain and mistrust paradigm. We want to trust each other, but we create our own, let's say, ecosystem. And I think that will become really a nightmare, because there is not really an interoperability aspect covered today, and we need that, this interoperability. We talk about governance and regulation at European international level. I think that's also for the legal frame. When I issue a data, it cannot be used. This can be used as legally or not. Or should I mean, a company issuing some information about a product, can I go to court because he didn't provide the right information? I mean, this kind of thing needs to be set up. And of course, important aspect is everything supporting innovation and business, in close interaction with the construction of a European blockchain framework. I think we need to work together. Initiatives like today, confronting first business, let's say business first, and see what we can build as a technical framework that can be used at the European level. I mean, it's smart. It's smart because we need to have this interaction. And so I'm only in favor of this kind of initiatives, and this will bring a lot to all SMEs because they can be part of it. That was my point.
Any other things to share or worries that you hear or notice from startups that they face in a regulatory or policy kind of perspective. They have a solution and they want to go to market and they hit, I don't know, is privacy indeed on top of mind, or are there other aspects?
There's one point I would like to share if possible. Yeah, thank you. So the main point, I think, is something that we've been working on within ATBA, so the Powered by a European Commission organization that we were founding members of. Like the idea is that even across countries who have strong cooperations, the regulations is still very different sometimes. And this makes it really complicated for business to kick in and to kickstart in a relevant way. So I think that the private sector can really contribute to pushing forward a more comprehensive regulations that is cross countries and hopefully cross-continental some aspects. We all know that the concept of privacy in the European Union is really is regulated in a way that is substantially different from other countries, for example. Also because of the, let's say, governmental approach that has been undertaken. But having a common ground to start from would also ensure a fairer market for the private sector to be able to provide rather, let's say, innovative solutions and finding more market share.
How can
that was previously pointed out, that today it's quite a very scattered amount of solutions in the ecosystem. It's very difficult to understand what are the differences between the various solutions, even for experts, because it's not publicized. It's just white papers claiming that they can do whatever they want, but at technical level, you cannot check. It's very difficult to find information, be it on the patent side or publications, scientific publications. And so for experts, it's difficult. For SMEs, it's nearly impossible. So it's very important that the regulation just point out what are the minimal certified things that are to be granted when a solution comes to the market. And this is today, for me, completely lacking. Another point is that with regard to business, we can address whatever business, but it's very easy to scale to whatever business. If you have a blockchain that can be upscaled to a very large number of users, and if you can have strong interoperability, it could be scaled very rapidly, sorry, to a large business, and it could rapidly achieve a standard. And if you can achieve that, it will change things very rapidly. And today, nobody is ready to deal with that. So it's for me, if it goes too fast and nobody has anticipated what will happen, it can be very disruptive in both the good and the bad way. So I think it's very important that people get understanding on what blockchain potential is, how they can be used, and to really target what will come next, and not just address the hype today of the business.
Okay, it's a clear call as well. So we need maybe a knowledge bank on solutions or best practices, and we need to think about the longevity. Jean-Luc, do you have any last things to add to that before we wrap up?
Well, no, I agree, but regarding the knowledge bank, I think the European Commission set up the EU Blockchain Observatory and Forum, which has the ambition to be that knowledge bank. You can find lots of startups being active in Europe on a map. So they're trying to do what they can. Of course, awareness needs to be raised and continuously on that initiative, but I think they're definitely taking a good leadership role there. And for the rest, I agree with the other comments, especially the ones from Yanis around standardization, and I would say even more specifically standardization of tokens today, both from a legal framework perspective as from a technical perspective, and making those two match. I think that will be a big enabler. To me, as long as we have tokens, but that it's not necessarily easy unless you have an e-money license to make a match between €1 equal one token or something like that. It will be difficult for companies to put them in accounting system. But I think overall in Europe, we're doing a good job. There needs to be a balance to be found between, of course, all the possibilities that innovations bring, but also limiting the downside of it. I'm thinking money laundering and all types of other existing regulations that exist. So I think Europe is trying to do its best in finding that balance. And so I'm looking forward to what's gonna happen in the next years in Europe.
Okay, we're exactly on time, so I want to thank the panelists for their contributions to the active discussion and for sharing their slides as well. I hope the quite quiet startup SMEs or other participants that have been listening in have learned a thing or two and found this interesting. There will be links shared, I think, to the relevant documentation. I just shared the link also to the Blockchain Observatory, which I find myself doing indeed a very good job in creating an overview of the key debates, documents, and also landscape of SMEs and networks that you can get access to. So this is also the point to really use all the information that we give to help you and to find the right routes to solutions, to education, to training, to coaching, to best practices, etc. So I hope this contributed to that, and I'll happily give the floor again to Sebastiano. You're still on mute.
Yes. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Tjerk, and thank you very much to all the panelists for the second and last panel of this conference. The hard task to do the conclusion falls on me, apparently. Let me start by saying that a detailed report will be shared with all the participants, and that the recording of the session is available, will remain available on YouTube. You will all receive the URL to access the recording, which is going to be also accessible directly from the digitalsme.eu website. We have received really a lot of interest for the topic, blockchain, which means our members are particularly active in the blockchain. Even we got really hundreds of registrations for this event, and even during the event, we still got registrations coming in, not only from our members, but also from other SMEs, from larger companies, but also from people from governments, from the European institutions or national governments, people from academia, many of them, and also journalists who were asking questions and they want to write something about it. We certainly learned many things. As I said, we'll make sure everything is wrapped up nicely in a report, which is also going to be part of the contributions delivered by the BlockIS project, which we mentioned earlier. Very soon we will also announce the final formation of the Digital SME task force on blockchain, and I hope many of you, especially those who are members who are interested, will be part of it. And so feel free to send us your expression of interest if you want to join the task force. It's a very important initiative, and I hope it will be successful. I'm sure it will be successful. Some of the takeaways from today certainly are that we confirmed, if it was necessary, that Europe has a global leadership role, and it has to maintain such a leadership in the development and adoption of blockchain. We don't want to be second to anyone, and we heard that there is a commitment both from our companies and from our policy and political leaderships. Certainly, we understood that blockchain is about community, so it's important to defragment the scenario. It's important that we are able to work together, not just as SMEs. First of all, this is the first layer. SMEs have to start a little bit working more together, maybe also enforcing some interoperability will help in that sense. But we also need to work with government and academia to make sure we all work in the same direction. We heard very important things in terms of what is missing. We need to invest in infrastructure. We need to invest in standards. We need to have regulatory sandboxes. We heard that very clearly in the first panel that allow SMEs to try out their technologies. We need more investment in the multi-annual financial framework of the Union to make sure Europe leads in terms also of research and development for blockchain. We will need to work with ecosystems, and an important role, at least it's an important European initiative, is the Digital Innovation Hubs, which will play a big role in this, not just for blockchain, but also for other technologies, but blockchain in particular, because we have a lot of SME providers of blockchain, and we want the hubs to help the SME providers get a closer link with the users, especially in their local communities. Let me finally remind concerning the Digital Innovation Hubs that the European Digital SME Alliance will host an important European event on Digital Innovation Hubs on the 26th of October, so really upcoming. The information is online. Check it on digitalsme.eu. Registrations are open, and we already have a lot of interest for that event, but we can cater for more people, so we are happy to have everyone on board. With this, I'd like to conclude the event. Thank you again to all the speakers and all the participants who were with us. Thank to our team, and looking forward to the next opportunity. Goodbye.